Do you feel though that someone is beginning to stand for delivery to?
No, not beginning. This has been going on for a while. There's been entities that have been trying to clean out as much as they can out of London and transport it and move it outside of London.
The land of Arcadia.
Hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus here with you for Arcadia Economics, and today another interview with Dave Kranzler, where he digs into the latest developments on the COMEX and the LBMA, where metal appears to be hard to come by once again. Although, real quick before we get started, I hope you're enjoying the show, and if you'd like to support what we're doing here, that sure does help us continue to bring coverage of these gold and silver markets to you. So there's an arrow appearing in your upper right. Click there if you would like to support the show. If you just like to enjoy the episode, that's fine too. But for the folks that would like to support what we're doing here, there's your chance to do so. And now here is today's episode. Hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus here with you for Arcadia Economics. And as usual, another fascinating week in the gold market. I know I say that every week, although I think somewhat warranted, given that seems almost as if we're seeing something similar to what I imagine it was like when the London gold pool was unraveling. And I'm fortunate to have Denver Dave Kranzler to join me today. Dave, are you old enough that you were alive when the London gold pool fell apart?
I mean, I'm old enough that I was alive when Kennedy was assassinated.
Wow, it's like
So
you're an antique.
I was definitely alive when the London Gold Pool was operating, though I had no, I
What
was
about what about
I
the
was in
Great
single digits then.
what about the Great Depression? Were you walking through 6 feet of snow to get some carrots and all that other good
No,
stuff?
but my parents were alive.
Okay. Well, hopefully one day we can get someone on the show who was alive for the Great Depression. That would be fascinating to dig into. Um, I've read Murray Rothbard's book on the Great Depression, where he talks about Hoover, paying farmers to burn a third of their crops while people are starving to death, which I guess is the type of things governments do. And today, fortunately, we'll get into things that governments and bankers are doing, because the news out of the LBMA and the COMEX has not by any means settled down. I know we were talking before we hit the record button. Ronan Manley had another sensational article this morning. I continue to hear people suggesting that someone is standing for delivery on the COMEX. So with that said, I know you've got plenty to say today, so take it away, my friend.
I don't have anything to say, man. There's 8 inches of snow in my backyard.
Goodness, I was not prepared for that one today.
That's why I'm wearing a nice sunny shirt. But I did take care of cleaning off the hot tub cover and the area around the hot tub.
That
Got to
is
have your
what's important.
priorities. So yeah, you referenced the article by Ronan Manley on bullionstar.com. Every single person who is interested in the gold market in any capacity and silver should read that article, because it's a smoking gun, and it basically reveals with source evidence, source documents, that the reported inventory on the COMEX in COMEX vaults is somewhat fraudulent. So, and this is something that I've maintained for well over a decade. The thing is, the what people need to understand is that the vault reports. Okay, so the documents that people pull up every day and look at and say, oh, that's the inventory. Well, that data comes from the banks.
Yeah.
And so the only way that you would believe that information is accurate is if you trust what the banks tell you.
And hasn't
And I've
JP
always
Morgan?
maintained that if the COT report, which that data comes from the banks also, the banks compile it and they send it to the CFTC once a week. The COT report and the vault report, if those are being reported honestly and ethically, it's the only part of a bank's business model that is reported honestly and ethically. So
Yeah.
what are the odds of that? You know, the one area of commerce that is probably the most well hidden, the most opaque, is gold trading, is the physical gold trading market. So why on earth would the banks want to report that information honestly? And as it turns out, and Ronan Manley did great sleuthing to expose it, that is the case.
Yeah. And so do you feel though that someone is beginning to stand for delivery to?
No, not beginning. This has been going on for a while. There's been entities that have been trying to clean out as much as they can out of London and transport it and move it outside of London. I'm just assuming it's either, you know, Russian, you know, the on behalf of the Russian central bank, or the PBOC, or you know, very wealthy, well plugged in individuals who want to try and accumulate and convert their fiat currencies into as much gold as possible. That's been going on for a while. It's coming to a head now because we're seeing that the COMEX has delivery problems. And so their solution to that is to work with the LBMA, and the LBMA has delivery problems. Work with the LBMA to create another paper derivative contract and paste it on to all the other ones that are out there and issued by the CME, the COMEX, and try and get people to believe in that piece of paper. I'm talking about the enhanced gold contract, which there has yet to be one contract traded since it started trading last Tuesday, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah, and it I mean, it all kind of makes sense where just even this morning alone, the headlines that the government has already, their small business relief efforts have been exhausted, apparently a week or two in. Now Japan is resorting. Somehow they're just declaring a national emergency today, but they're going to be sending out yen as Shinzo Abe, who campaigned on a hyperinflation platform, which he has been elected and delivered. So I mean, it's like people have no choice, and I don't think it's any accident the things that you were describing, or as you see in the chart here. It's interesting. I mean, it 1730. We're now not really that far anymore from gold's all-time high. Plus, you add on all the things that you're describing that are going on behind the scenes, and it's just I wonder if this is what it was like seeing the end of the London gold pool.
I mean, there's no way to know unless, you know, we could chat with someone who was around then, James Turk, who used to write about it all the time, way before most people that are involved in the market now ever heard of the London gold pool. He was around back then, and you might even be able to dig through the GATA archives and find some of the stuff he's written about it. But ultimately, the collapse of the London gold pool is what led to the closing of the gold window by Nixon in 1971.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, you know, this is probably kind of rhymes with what happened then. It's not exactly like it was back then. There wasn't back then. There was no such thing as gold futures. Gold futures didn't start trading until 1974, and there's actually documentation that you can find on the GATA website, actual letters that were eventually declassified and made available to the public, and no one except nerds like GATA nerds read it. And it's correspondence between Henry Kissinger and Arthur Burns and several other parties where they talk about, hey, we need to come up with some sort of alternative to institutions putting a lot of money into physical gold. So let's devise something. And that's kind of how the futures came about. They did that to absorb money that would otherwise be used to buy physical gold, which is similar to why GLD was created.
Yes. Yeah, and I'd add to your list there that even in Paul Volcker's own autobiography, he talked about how they needed to suppress the gold price, and
Yes.
then that led to the collapse of the London gold pool. So, if nothing else, seems like a fascinating piece of history we are living through and watching. Mr. Kranzler, final question before we wrap up. We've seen reports, at least, of gold spreads being, just a bid-ask spread being almost $100 wide at certain points. Obviously, as I know you're well aware, the premiums on physical metal continue. I mean, we've talked for years about at some point, does the physical market divorce itself from the paper market? That, again, is no longer, will this happen? It's happening now. And just any comment on the spreads or the premiums there, and which I think is further evidence of what you've been saying throughout today's call.
I mean, no one knows for sure, what the reasoning is. I mean, we can put together, useful theories or working models. I mean, my contention is that what's known as the spot price is essentially set twice a day in London. And if you spend enough time watching the charts, you'll note that a lot of times the price of gold is taken down in advance of the AM fix, and it's taken down using paper gold, COMEX futures. So they set the spot price at a level that probably is not reflective of the true underlying supply and demand of physical gold, and where large quantities of physical gold would trade if it were made available. So, I mean, what I think is going on is entities that want to buy and take delivery of decent quantities of physical gold, they're not going to put the money up, if they want immediate delivery for it, because they're not sure they're going to get immediate delivery. I mean, already, the LBMA and the CME have conspired to concoct a cock and bull story about, oh, well, if you want 100-ounce bars, just buy this 25% interest certificate in a 400-ounce LBMA bar that's sitting here in the vault. Trust us. Trust us. The gold's really there. I mean, it's absurd. So I think what's going on is where the spread's coming in is that real buyers, serious buyers, are ignoring the spot price, and they're taking on futures and forwards on the LBMA in the hopes that at some point, maybe when the refineries are kicked back into full gear, that there will be gold available in quantities that they can take delivery of. So rather than put up money for something that you may or may not get delivered right now, lock in a price now in the futures market. And that's kind of my theory on what the spread, for that would, to me, for my satisfaction, explains a large part of the spread. And it also, again, it's several others have said it as well. It reflects the high degree of stress, the tension between the paper market and the physical market.
Yep, that sure makes a lot of sense, Dave. And I might point out for folks watching at home that you dig into all these things in more depth in the Mining Stock Journal. And also, if people are wondering how the government is going to fund all this and if there's a bubble out there, there is the Short Sellers Journal too, both found at investmentresearchdynamics.com. Is that right, Dave?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, and I know
it is.
And I might point out, you did a great job of your screen point last week. My mom was really impressed with that. So
come on, did she really comment on it?
She's a big fan. We have our marketing director, Yara, is getting the Kranzler was right t-shirts made up.
Stop.
Peter Schiff was right. Ma already wants one. So, but in all seriousness, Dave, I get comments and messages from people. You see them on the videos that they really appreciate you come in and share your insight into what's going on each week in these markets. So I thank you for being here, and we'll look forward to doing this.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. And folks at home, if you want some more coverage of why these things are happening and what it's looking like from the bullion side, well, we got you covered.